रीडिंग की प्रैक्टिस कैसे करें, इसके ऊपर ये सेकंड वीडियो है, प्रैक्टिस का वीडियो है ये, राइट। इसमें आपको ध्यान देना है सभी चीज़ों को जो भी बताया गया है। एक तो चीज़ है आपका कि कैसे हमें इसको ग्रुपिंग करनी है, कैसे चंक में रखना है। सेकेंड चीज़ है कि कैसे हमें पॉज को कितना पॉज देना है, मतलब कितना हमें गैप, मतलब कि कितना हमें रुकना है कहाँ पे। दूसरा चीज, तीसरा है कि कैसे हमें उसको बोलना है, राइट। जैसे आपने देखा होगा कि अगर फुल स्टॉप है, राइट, फुल स्टॉप है या क्वेश्चन मार्क है या मार्क ऑफ एक्सक्लेमेशन है, हम अलग अलग तरीके से उसको बोलते हैं। जैसे कि अगर मैं छोटा एग्जाम्पल दूं तो इसमें क्या होगा, छोटे एग्जाम्पल्स में, कि फुल स्टॉप अगर रहता है, ऐसे कुछ बताते तो नॉर्मली बताते हैं, जैसे ऑल बेबीज लुक अलाइक, ओके, आई वाज थिंकिंग अबाउट द सेम, तो हम सिंपल वे में बात करते हैं। लेकिन अगर क्वेश्चन हो तो वही हम दूसरे तरीके से बात करते हैं, जैसे कैन दे बी एक्सचेंज्ड, कैन दे बी एक्सचेंज्ड, व्हाट्स योर नेम, व्हाट्स योर नेम, तो एक अलग तरीके से कहते हैं। लेकिन अगर वही मार्क्स ऑफ एक्सक्लेमेशन की बात करो, उल्टी आई की बात करें, अगर हम इसकी बात करें तो ये इसका जो है कहने का तरीका अलग होता है। जैसे कि इसको कैसे बोलते हैं हम, जैसे अगर हम कहना आउच, व्हाट, ओह, राइट, तो ये हम जो फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन हमारा चेंज हो जाता है, फीलिंग्स, डिफरेंट फीलिंग्स हमारे फेसेस पे आ जाती हैं, राइट। तो ये मार्कअप एक्सक्लेमेशंस का है। तो जब भी हम रीड करेंगे तो इन सब चीज़ों का ख्याल रखेंगे। नेक्स्ट जो है हमारा कि कहाँ पे हमें स्ट्रेस देना है, ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, राइट। तो इन सारी चीज़ों को आप देखेंगे। चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं, लेट्स स्टार्ट नाउ। माई फर्स्ट स्टेप्स, all babies look alike. Can they be exchanged when the nurse gives them a bath? Can they be exchanged when the nurse gives them a bath? Objectives. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to read and understand an autobiography, use compound words, use the simple past tense, and ask and answer simple questions in speech. आपने देखा होगा कि कैसे कहाँ पे है, जैसे एट द एंड ऑफ दिस लेसन यू विल बी एबल टू, मतलब कि और भी है इसके अंदर। रीड एंड अंडरस्टैंड एन ऑटोबायोग्राफी, ऊपर की तरफ ले जाने, इसका मतलब कि और भी है। रीड एंड अंडरस्टैंड एन ऑटोबायोग्राफी, यूज कंपाउंड वर्ड्स, यूज द सिंपल पास्ट टेंस, एंड आस्क एंड आंसर सिंपल क्वेश्चंस इन स्पीच। इन स्पीच यहाँ पे मैंने नीचे टोन कर दिया, इसका मतलब क्या है कि अब समाप्त हो गया, फुल स्टॉप आ चुका है, राइट। सो यूज द सिंपल पास्ट टेंस एंड आस्क एंड आंसर सिंपल क्वेश्चंस इन स्पीच। अब शुरू करते हैं यहां से। आई मे नेवर हैव बिकम अ क्रिकेटर एंड दिस बुक would certainly not have been written if an eagle-eyed relation, Mr. Narayan Masurikar, had not come into my life the day I was born, July 10th of 1949. It seems that Nan Kaka, as I call him, who had come to see me in hospital on my first day in this world, noticed a little hole near the top of my left earlobe. The next day, he came again and picked up the baby. The next day he came again and picked up the baby lying on the crib next to my mother. To his utter horror, he discovered that the baby did not have the hole on the left earlobe. A frantic search of all the cribs in the hospital followed. आपने देखा होगा कि एम्फेसिस जो स्ट्रेस है, a frantic search of all the cribs in the hospital followed. फ्रैंटिक पे है, क्रिब्स पे है, हॉस्पिटल है। एंड आई वॉज इवेंचुअली लोकेटेड स्लीपिंग ब्लिसफुली, I was eventually located sleeping blissfully beside a fisherwoman, totally oblivious of the commotion I had caused. The mix-up, it appears, followed after the babies had been given their bath. Providence had helped me to retain my true identity, and in the process, फिर से इसको पढ़ता हूँ क्योंकि कॉमा है। Providence had helped me to retain my true identity and in the process charter the course of my life. I have often wondered what would have happened if nature had not marked me out and given me my guard by giving me that small hole on my left earlobe, and if Nan Kaka had not noticed this abnormality. तो कॉमा जहां होता है वहां पे हल्का पॉज देते हैं. Perhaps I would have grown up to be an obscure fisherman toiling somewhere along the west coast. And what about the baby who, for a spell, took my place? I do not know if he is interested in cricket or whether he will ever read this book. I can only hope that if he does, he will start taking a little more interest in Sunil Gavaskar. How did Sunil begin playing cricket? Who helped to develop his talent as a cricketer? Let's read on. तो हमें ऐसा नहीं पढ़ना है कि एकदम से रोबोटिक पढ़ना है कि रोबोट की तरह पढ़ना है कि हाउ डिड सुनील बिगिन प्लेइंग क्रिकेट. नो, हाउ डिड सुनील बिगिन प्लेइंग क्रिकेट? Who helped to develop his talent as a cricketer? Let's read on. My most vivid recollection of my childhood cricket playing days. कैसे पढ़ेंगे इसको? My most vivid recollection of my childhood cricket playing days. Of my childhood cricket playing days is the time I almost broke my mother's nose. तो कैसे पढ़ना है? I almost broke my mother's nose. She used to bowl to me in the small gallery of our house where we played our daily match with a tennis ball. Since the area was small, she would kneel to bowl, or rather lob the ball to me. I hit one straight back and caught her bang on the nose, which started bleeding. Although it was a tennis ball, the distance between the two of us was very short, which accounts for the force with which the ball hit her. I was frightened, but she shrugged it off. ये गलत हो जाएगा क्योंकि मैंने फुल स्टॉप दे दिया. तो कैसे पढ़ेंगे? कॉमा है ना, तो हल्का पॉज देना है, वहां पे टोन नीचे नहीं ले जाना है. चलिए देखते हैं. I was frightened but she shrugged it off. गलत. चलिए. I was frightened but she shrugged it off, washed her face and the bleeding stopped. We continued the game. यहां पे गेम के पास लेकर के करना. एक बार और पढ़ दूं. I was frightened but she shrugged it off, washed her face and at the bleeding stopped. We continued the game. तो जहाँ पे समाप्त नहीं हुआ है, फुल स्टॉप नहीं आया, वहाँ पे हम ऊपर की तरफ टोन ले जा रहे हैं ताकि ये पता चले कि हमारा समाप्त नहीं हुआ है और भी इसके साथ में. बट फॉर द रेस्ट ऑफ द डे इट वॉज ओनली फॉरवर्ड डिफेंस फॉर मी. आई रिस्ट्रेन्ड माई सेल्फ एंड प्लेड नो अटैकिंग शॉट. नो अटैकिंग शॉट. समझ में आ रहा है? तो इसको ऐसे बोलना है जैसे कि इंटरेस्टिंग लगे. क्रिकेट टू यूज अ क्लीशे इन माई ब्लड. My father was a good club cricketer. My father was a good club cricketer in his days and a keen student of the game. Even now we have interesting discussions on various aspects of the game, and I have found his advice invaluable in the development of my career. And as I have already said, I have had the privilege of having a cricketing mother who helped me to take the first steps in the game I have come to love. My uncle Madhav Mantri, देख रहे हैं ना, कॉमा है. My uncle Madhav Mantri, who played for an India in 4 official tests, though not very successfully, was forced to reckon with in first-class games. Whenever I went to my uncle's house, my favorite pastime used to be take out his pullovers and caress them with a sense of longing. I was so attracted by the India Test pullovers that once I even dared to ask him if I could take one. यहाँ पे मैंने गिरा दिया, यानी यहाँ पे गलत हो गया. फिर से देखिए. I was so attracted by the India Test pullovers that once I even dared to ask him if I could take one since he had so many. If I could take one since he had so many. If I could take one, ऊपर ही ले जाना है, नीचे नहीं, नहीं तो समाप्त हो जाएगा, फुल स्टॉप आ जाएगा. ठीक है. Since I could take one since he had so many. my uncle told me that one has to sweat and earn the India colors, and I too should work hard to earn the distinction. That is a lesson. That is a lesson I have never forgotten. Looking back, I'm glad that my uncle did not succumb to my childish fancy and instead taught me that there was no shortcut to the top. I was also fascinated by the many souvenirs he had and the large number of trophies he had owned. What I liked most was the stump bearing the autographs of the 1952 India and England teams. So कैसे पढ़ेंगे इसको सही से? What I liked most was the stump bearing the autobiographies of the 1942 India and England teams, and I loved to linger over the autograph of every player. राइट एक बार और पढ़ दूँ ताकि आपको समझ में आए कैसे करना है. कई बार हम फुल स्टॉप समझ लेते हैं. What I liked most was the stump bearing the autographs of the 1952 India and England teams, and I loved to linger over the autograph of every player. Clear है? Right from the beginning, I wanted to become a batsman, and ठीक है. Right from the beginning, I wanted to become a batsman, and I hated losing my wicket. This became such an obsession with me that if the rest of the boys ever got me out, I would fight and eventually walk home with the bat and the ball. This would bring the game to an abrupt end since nobody else had a ball or bat. The boys cursed and called me names, but the tension did not last long, and we generally got on very well. Among these early comrades with whom I played were the MB brothers, the Manderkar brothers, and several others who made up our team. Whenever I batted, they would decide beforehand that they would appeal at a particular ball, and whether I was out or not, I had to go by the majority verdict. We often played. एक बार और इसको पढ़ता हूँ. Whenever I batted, they would decide beforehand that they would appeal at a particular ball, and whether I was out or not, I had to go by the majority verdict. We often played matches against teams made up boys living in the neighboring building, and there was a tremendous interest in the trophies, as we call them, right? As we call them. फिर से इसको पढ़ता हूँ. We often played matches against teams made up of boys living in the neighboring building, and there was tremendous interest in the trophies, as we called them. मैंने इसलिए पढ़ा क्योंकि मैंने शुरू में नीचे नहीं उतरा था, सही से टोन डाउन नहीं हुआ था. These trophies were small white metal cups for which we all contributed and bought for as